Welcome, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us for this webinar. I am Ziyanda Brokwe, and I'm joined by my colleague, Tsepo Sibolai. We are both from the Financial Advisory and Intermediary Supervision Department. And today we will be taking you through just a snippet, a bite size of what is the misunderstanding that the FSPs have when it comes to succession planning, removal of key individual, and governance. The legislation that we'll be referencing is the FAIS Act, together with the General Code of Conduct and the Board Notice 194 of 2017. So what is succession planning? Succession planning is mainly change in management, a change in senior management that could lead or that impacts the operations of the business. Why are we emphasizing on succession planning? Because succession planning can assist a lot when it comes to making sure that there are no delays when it comes to operations, when managing the operations of the business. It fosters a stakeholder confidence, where you know that even if someone has left, senior person in the business has left the business, but then there are no delays when it comes to service delivery. There are no delays when it comes to submissions. If there are submissions that are outstanding, there won't be any delays, and everyone involved is comfortable knowing that business will continue as usual. What are the instances that we have noticed was that if an FSP has a key individual, that only one key individual, then it takes, when that person leaves the business, it takes an FSP a long time to actually fill the position. And by that time, they're already in non-compliance. They're facing a risk of non-compliance where, in terms of the FAIS Act, you as an FSP have to continuously have a key individual that monitors and oversees your operations. So if you have one person and then anything happens to that person, then your FSP will be in contravention and will be delaying now signing contracts, meeting clients, new business, because there's no one to oversee. If COVID-19 taught us anything, was that nothing is you can plan, but there are things you need to extra plan for. You can have one person who's young and who's a key individual, but then there are no signs of illness or health issues, but boom, a pandemic hits, and then something happens to that person, and they are unable now to fulfill their duty as a key individual. So what we want to encourage the FSPs to do, not necessarily to employ someone new or someone from outside, because that will mean there will be costs, expenses now that the FSP will have to encounter. We encourage the FSP to train people internally that will be shadowing the existing key individual. If you have that one key individual, then you can have people who have qualifications, full qualifications, and they have completed their regulatory examination, and now the only thing that is outstanding is experience. So they can be shadowing this key individual for experience purposes. And if you don't have a person who has all of these things, they can still, while this key individual is working for the FSP, they can be under training in a way where they will start completing these things, completing their qualifications, completing their regulatory examination, and in that time, completing their experience under this existing key individual. Should the key individual now leaves the FSP, then the FSP is not stranded because they already had someone that they were training or shadowing this key individual. So it makes it easy for the FSP now to have that person take over the duties of the leaving or exiting key individual. And the compliance risk will be lessened. So it's a less compliance risk when you have more than one key individual. However, we know it's got cost implications to it. So that's why we say you can train someone in the meantime. So should something happen to this one person who's a key individual, another one can take over. The other example is that, as I was mentioning, the pandemic, that some other circumstances are unforeseen. And then it could happen that as a sole proprietor and you're the only person in your business, you're a key individual, you're a representative in the business, should you unable now to complete your tasks, whether you fall ill or now on an unfortunate circumstance you die, then the clients will need to be taken care of. So now you're unable to do that. So the succession planning will help in that whoever now is winding up the business will be able to follow the plan. If, for instance, as an FSP, you knew that should anything happen to me, I've entered into a contract with another FSP, which is if Zianda FSP will enter into another contract with Tsepo FSP to ensure that should anything happen to me, Tsepo will take over my book. So in an instance when I'm unable to do it myself, then someone else has it easy when the succession plan is in place. So they know who Tsepo is, the FSP number is there, there's a contract. The FSP number is there, the contact details are there, and then unless Tsepo now doesn't want to take over because maybe he doesn't have capacity, then the business can be moved directly to the underwriter. However, that is something that needs to be explicitly detailed on the succession plan, that should Tsepo, maybe even he has closed down his business, then what would happen in that instance? If he has closed down or now doesn't have capacity, doesn't want to take over this business, what will happen then? Then it should specify then that the clients would be moved directly to the underwriter, and the underwriter should know as well that should anything happen, the business could move to him or to the underwriter as a business, and then what will the process be? It should be detailed then on that succession plan. So the reason I'm emphasizing that should you not be able to do it yourself, because it's easy when it's Zianda's FSP, I'm alone in my FSP, and then I decide I'm unable to do this because my health now is taking its toll on me, then I can still do it myself. I know what to do, I know who to contact. However, if I'm unable at all in a circumstance where I die, then someone else will not be able now to do it as I should have. However, if then there's a succession plan in place, then it details everything, that the steps and the process that should take place, then it makes it easier for the person who will be winding up my business. Another thing that we would like to encourage is that this succession plan document should not be a standalone document. It should form part of your risk management plan together with other policies that will be implemented in an instance where you are not there anymore. So you will have your disaster recovery policies, you will have your business continuity policies. All of those things are forming part of your risk management plan. So together with the succession plan, it should form part of the risk management plan, so that anything that has to do with the risk that is facing the business is in one place. So moving on, we're talking now about removal of key individual. What does that mean? It's when an FSP, for whatever reason, now they decided that Zianda as a key individual does not serve a purpose for us. So we would like to remove them from our profile. It could be that Zianda has resigned, or Zianda has been fired, or Zianda is unable now to do her duty as a key individual. Then in that case, as an FSP, you don't necessarily need the authority's approval to remove the person. However, it's still an internal process that the authorities does. So you'll still need to advise the authority that Zianda as a key individual is no longer part of our profile. We would like to remove her from our profile. So when you're removing Zianda, obviously there will be questions, or you need to provide that information upfront, where are the reasons that Zianda is being removed is that she has resigned and now we don't want her. She doesn't need to be under our profile. Though if there are any outstanding information, obviously the authority will ask that information from you, which you will provide as an FSP, and the process will begin. We do emphasize that, excuse me, we do emphasize that when you are removing a key individual as an FSP, you must note that you should always have someone to replace that key individual. What am I saying is that in terms of FAIS, it is a requirement that every time the FSP is operational, throughout continuously, there must be a key individual who's monitoring and who's overseeing the operations of the business. So when you come to us to say, I'm removing Zianda, there should be someone already existing at the FSP as a key individual. If not, then you should provide us with the details to add the new key individual. So the process of adding a key individual, even the removal of the key individual, it takes longer. So you don't send us a request today and tomorrow it's done, because we do need to check, do our due diligence as well to see if there are no outstanding queries, there are no standing information that needs to have been provided to us. That goes from removal and even addition. So when you're adding the key individual, we'll obviously need the qualifications, confirmation of qualifications, that the key individual has completed their regulatory examination and that they have the required experience. You've already done your due diligence as well as an FSP. Then when you're sending us the information, it should be in full so that we don't delay in actually loading this person onto your profile. So once that is done, it takes quite a while. It could take 8 weeks, depending on the information that you've provided of this person, new person you want to add into your profile. If it's an existing person, it makes it easier because the information is already online. However, if it's a new person, then a proper due diligence will need to be done. However, the process is still long, it's still that 8 weeks. So that's why then you can't afford not to have a person running the operations of the business. So if, for an example, if you know that Zianda as our key individual is resigning, you can have a talk with Zianda to serve a 2 months notice while you have the authority, you provided the authority with the information to load a new key individual under your profile. So you can advise as well that, okay, we want to remove Zianda because she has resigned. However, she's serving 2 months notice. And this is Tsepo. He will be our new key individual starting from 2 months after Zianda has left, or in 2 months' time. So the reason we want you to do this is because we want to ensure operational ability of the person you are employing. So if you're employing someone who's already a key individual for another institution and you think it's going to be easier for them because they're already existing, you need to establish operational ability of this person. Will they be able to serve you as the FSP? Operational ability is covered under Section 36 1CV of the Board Notice 194 of 2017. This is a reference, so if you want to go and read more about operational ability. So the reason we're emphasizing it on the removal of a key individual is because most of the time people want to remove someone and they don't have the capacity to replace. So we emphasizing the replacement so that you do not face the risk of non-compliance. When you have someone, as I mentioned before, when I was talking about succession planning, when I said you don't necessarily need someone new that will add cost to your business. However, you can train someone who's an existing personnel in your books, and then that person can be trained to take over one day. So the training of that person obviously involves a contract that will be entered into by the FSP and the individual who's being trained. So with the help of the key individual, that will be checking it could be every month or every quarter, just to see if the person is complying with all the requirements. So that contract that I'm talking about will be very helpful when the person will need now to replace an existing or exiting key individual. So it will be something you can provide to us, that we have this contract, this person's got the all the requirements that we wanted them to have when it comes to monitoring and overseeing operations of the business. They meet them, and this is the signed contract. So when they do meet the operational requirements, and you're happy with it as an FSP, it makes it easier for us because you'll be able to provide us with all the information at application stage to add this new key individual. Moving on, we have governance. So Tsepona will take us through governance, where it will cover everything when it comes to succession planning and the removal of the key individual. Thank you, Tshepo. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Zianda.
Yes.
I will now proceed with the governance section of the webinar. And just to point out here, we are not going to, the webinar is not going to cover everything under the governance requirements. We are just going to highlight certain issues that we've identified as the authority. Now, with governance, the FSP's governance include the breaking down of the various roles within the FSP, from the board of directors, senior management, key individuals, and compliance officers. Now, depending on how big the FSP is, yeah, you refer to the structure of the business. Some FSPs will have all the mentioned structures that I've already referred to in place, and others might only have a compliance officer as part of the governance structure. For example, you find that you have a small FSP where it's just as Zianda as the owner slash key individual slash rep in the business, and the FSP has also appointed a compliance officer. So the governance framework of the FSP will differ depending on the size and structure of that FSP. Sometimes it also happens that there are changes in legislation and updates from the industry, and that also forms part of the responsibility of the governance structure, where the FSP as a governance structure. For example, with changes in legislation, maybe there might be amendments to the existing legislation, or the authority may issue a standard, for example. So those, where there are those changes in legislation, the governance structures must ensure or check how those affect the business of the FSP, whether it will relate to their processes, whether it relates to IT matters, whether it relates to cybersecurity. They need to ensure how those changes in legislation will affect the operations of the business, and also the key individuals and the representatives and other staff members of the FSPs rely on the directions of the governance structure when they are performing their duties. Again, it is the responsibility of the governance structure to ensure that the policies that are put in place are implemented. For example, earlier on, Zianda mentioned succession planning, and she also emphasized the succession plan. So, for example, when the FSP has a succession plan in place, it is the responsibility of the governance structure to ensure that when there's a triggering event, such as a resignation of a key individual, for example, that succession plan is implemented, depending on what the triggering event is. Furthermore, as part of governance, your governance structure, if it's a board of director as the FSP, must ensure that there's transparency, more especially where there are changes in senior roles that could affect the operations of the FSP, because we have noticed that sometimes on the financial statements, the director's report would state that a director resigned on a particular date, but when you check the profile of the FSP, that director is still appearing on the profile of the FSP. So the key individual and or the compliance officer, as the persons that are linked to the profile of the FSP, are responsible for reporting these changes to the authority timeously in accordance with the licensing conditions. So the requirement is, if a director is resigned, for example, we must be notified of the changes within 15 days of the changes occurring.
Okay.
And moving forward to accounting issues and financial statement matters, you are aware that it is a requirement that your financial statements must be submitted to the authority no later than 4 months after the end of your financial year. That's the requirement. Now, according to Section 37 2C of Board Notice 194/2017, your accounting policies and procedures, or rather, you as the FSP, you must have accounting policies and procedures in place to enable you to submit financial reports to the authority timeously. Remember the 4 months that I mentioned earlier. Your accounting procedures must enable you to ensure that after the end of your financial year, within 4 months, you are able to submit the financial statements to the authority and the related statutory returns. Also, the submissions must not be affected by the changes in the FSP structure. For example, it must not be affected by by the resignation of an accountant, for example, who is preparing your financial statement, or the resignation of the auditor who would have to conduct an audit after the financial statements are prepared. So those are the things that they must not affect your submission. And also, we've noted that the other FSPs that tend to rely on their compliance officer to do submissions on their behalf. So that also, because they have difficulties navigating the portal, so they rely on the compliance officer to submit the financial statement. So if the compliance officer resigns, for example, that may also have an effect in you submitting your statement to the authority in time, if you are relying on the compliance officer to do your submissions. So in closing, we just like to highlight that your governance framework must be in line with the regulatory requirements, so that you remain compliant with the requirements at all times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tsepo. We have come to the end of our webinar. So just to recap what we were talking about, we mostly saying that you need to plan for unforeseen circumstances, whether, especially when there's changes in senior management, that it doesn't affect your operations, and that your reporting is not affected by the key individual resigning, a compliance officer resigning, or even an accountant that has resigned. So plan for these things. You must have someone internally who knows what to do should something like this happens, and having a plan in place makes it easier to implement. Thank you very much for watching our webinar, and please do note that we do have other webinars that are covering other particular sections of the Act, when you can visit our FSCA YouTube channel and you'll find them on there. Thank you very much, and see you again soon.